everyone has had to do this in school quite yet, but one time in high school, I had to write a six-page paper on a class-wide book. Now, keep in mind, up until this point, I had never written more than like 1 to 2 pages at most. So 6 pages felt like an entire book series. Not to mention, the book that the paper was about was super confusing, and I did not know how I was going to stretch it that far. Now, to save you a lot of time, I got to the 6 pages, barely, with a lot of fluff, but still, I did what I needed to do. We had to print it out and bring it in the next morning to be graded. Now, for most of you, your schooling gets turned in online or through some sort of classroom app. But back in the ancient times, you had to type it up in a Word doc, save it, either put it on a flash drive or like physically print it out. Not too hard, normally. Except in my case, my old as heck, crusty computer decided to get the blue screen of death, meaning it got a virus and literally died. Not like needed to be charged, like it died. Computer essentially got wiped clean by the virus, everything got deleted, including, you guessed it, my paper. So at the risk of tanking my grade, I tried to remember what I could, hand wrote it on loose leaf paper, and tried to ask if this could either be late, or if I could type it up properly, or if I could just turn it in like it is. She shot me down, so I had to rewrite the entire thing, but I did have a few days of an extension at least. But the catch? I had to already take an entire letter grade off. Meaning, if my paper was like 100% perfect, the highest I could start with was a B. Yeah, in her words, I should have done the paper far enough in advance that if this extremely random and unfortunate situation were to happen, that I could have had time to rewrite my paper. It was terrible having to rewrite that entire paper, and it was the bane of my existence. Have you ever had a situation like that? Trying to remember the details, the whole plot order. Maybe you've had to edit someone else's paper to help make it more engaging or to have a better ending. Well, as we've talked about the past few weeks, the Bible is a living, breathing story that is still unfolding for you and me today. There's no rewriting that Jesus died for us. That is the absolute truth. But what happens for you and me because of it? That is what this series that we're talking about is all about. How our stories are being rewritten because of his ultimate sacrifice. And this week's topic is no different. We're going to see how a woman goes from being an outcast to sitting at Jesus' feet and how this applies to all of us still today. Back in biblical times, there were traces of similarities to how we live today, but there are also some very stark differences too, like activities, social norms, even money and value of things. So what's the most expensive thing that you own or maybe that your parents have gifted to you? Maybe it's an iPhone, a car, or a computer or a video game console. Whatever it is, you hold that as your prized possession. Think about it. If you dropped your iPhone and it broke while you were out and about, it would seriously hinder you from getting to where you needed to go, calling for help, taking pictures at whatever event you are, whatever it may be. Or maybe you have a job and you've worked for months to save up for the newest Xbox or PS4, maybe they're on 5 now, I have no idea. But all of the money that you've just earned down the drain with one circuit frying your entire console. You'd be devastated, right? Obviously, back in biblical times, their wealth was measured somewhat differently than ours is today. They didn't have the technology that we do today or the status that some of the clothing brands hold. They had coins and other monetary value, but they also held high value of livestock and garments and land and oils and perfumes, just to name a few. Now, I've been around students long enough to know that not all of y'all wear cologne or perfume. And to be honest, after the mission trip, some of y'all really need to reconsider that. But all joking aside, perfume was an important item that someone maybe not as wealthy could use to trade or to purchase something. So today we're going to read about a woman who had perfume just like that, something extremely valuable to her. Now, this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, so we're going to be reading from the third book of the Gospels, which you can find in the New Testament. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, He went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears, and then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Now, while this doesn't seem like there's much going on there, there's actually a ton of important info here. See, the Pharisees were people who were supposed to be teachers of the law, except they took it just a little bit too far. They were greedy and hypocritical. So it's ironic that they deem the woman who never gets a name as someone with a sinful life. They consider her less than. So someone that definitely did not deserve to be at this dinner. Now, they don't explicitly say what she did, so we'll never know exactly, but sin is sin. It is a separation from God. And the part that you probably noticed here was when it said this. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Now, it may seem strange to wet someone's feet with their tears and wipe and dry them with her hair before pouring perfume on them, except this was actually an act of love and of gratitude. Washing someone's feet was a big sign of respect and a humbling experience in this time. Unless you had transportation animals, people primarily walked most places. Also, I'm sure you've heard of the ever-famous Jesus sandals. I'm actually wearing some right now. It's basically an open-toe shoe that just kind of slides on. And I mean, design-wise, it's probably similar to what they would have worn. So think about this. Open-toe shoes, dirt roads, not easily accessible water or soap. This was the perfect combination for some crusty and literally dusty feet. So washing your feet was a common practice when you entered someone's home. But nobody's going to wash your feet for you. Them crusty dogs ain't coming anywhere near my hands. They felt the same way. You washed your own feet when you came in. So for this woman to wash Jesus' feet, that was a huge sign of respect. She knew something was different about him, so she did something that nobody else would. She humbled herself to show him the respect that he deserves. And Jesus recognizes this, of course. It goes on to say, then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I have entered has not stopped kissing my feet. And you did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little. She knew that people considered her a sinner and unworthy of meeting Jesus, but this was her chance. She loved him so much that she gave everything she had, even when what she had was little. She used her perfume, her hair, her tears. She gave it all. The important part here is that Jesus didn't just turn her away and say, you've not offered me the proper greeting. You aren't worthy of being at this dinner. He did the exact opposite. He continues and goes on to say this. Then Jesus said to her, your sins are forgiven. The other guests began to say amongst themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? And Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Jesus gave this woman a new ending. He rewrote her story. It was determined by society and others that she was going to remain on the outside looking in. She knew that this was her chance, though. Her chance to step out in faith boldly to get the ending that she knew only he could give her. Now, I know this story might seem kind of old and unrelatable, but I disagree. You see, this story has everything to do with you and me. We're all sinners, like I mentioned earlier. Sin is sin. You may think that your sin is lesser than whatever the person next to you is doing, but no. All of us sin, and all of us sin daily. But we are not excluded from the grace that is offered to us when we trust in him. We can lead by that example that this woman has set before us, and we can do it in a few different ways. First off, we can be humble. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but you're not above anyone else, and vice versa. Remember, the woman humbled herself to the point of doing something that nobody else would. She knew that any potential pride and ego that she had was worth laying down for the chance to meet Jesus. The same is true for you and I. Jesus has something for us that we cannot even imagine. But sometimes we let our potential pride and ego stand in the way of that and what he has to offer. But if we do that, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss the life change that Jesus has for us. And I also want you to know, I'm not saying that you cannot be confident in yourself. I want you to be as confident as you can be because you have tons of reasons to do so. But that confidence can be misplaced if we're not careful. Which brings me along to the next thing I want you to remember: to be bold in your faith. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and be the light. She decided to take her chance in a place where she knew it was not meant for her to be, at the slightest chance that she could meet Jesus. She had so much faith in him, in what he could do, that she decided to be bold, to show up in a place where she could have been kicked out, mocked, and belittled. She knew that even a moment to interact with Jesus was worth any consequences that she might have faced. And lastly, show love. Maybe others have treated you the way the Pharisees treated her. They have taken every chance to tear you down and make you feel small and insignificant. But Jesus tells us to show love like she has shown him. She had nothing to offer, but she gave everything. And I want to read that to you again. Then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I have entered has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put any oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has been shown. But whoever has forgiven little loves little." It's not going to be easy, but show love. Show a great love to others and to those around you. Now, I know that all of you live an extremely hard and challenging time with peers in school, dating, jobs, life, family, faith, sports, recitals, everything in between, but your story is still being rewritten. Every decision, every day, every moment, your story is unraveling. So choose to be humble, be bold in your faith, and show a great love like he has shown you. You might be surprised on how he chooses to use you. So let him rewrite your ending in only the way that he can.